you seem like you're in love with him, but you love Ryle. And I was like, no, I also love Ryle, but like, I really love Atlas. He's like, you love Ryle. And I was like, wait, I'm sorry. Oh, wait, what's happening? But you love Ryle. I do, but like, she's conflicted. Totally. And that was always an interesting dynamic when you have somebody who's playing the character also being the one like looking at the movie. So we were always like, are we too connected? Are we too vibing? Yeah. But she loves Ryle. He's the best. I mean, she loves Atlas. She also loves Ryle. But she loves Atlas and young Lily.
Hey everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Well, welcome back. Today I actually have some positive updates to share. After a long stretch where it looked like Blake Lively wouldn't face any consequences, and many people believed that Judge Lyman might be biased in her favor, there's finally been a shift. Honestly, some of us still question Judge Lyman's decisions. But this latest ruling is at least a small win for accountability. Jed Wallace has officially been removed from Blake's lawsuit in New York. The court decided that New York doesn't have legal authority over him because he's a Texas resident. That means he can't be sued in New York simply because he lives and operates in another state. What stood out in the judge's explanation was how he carefully examined Blake's claims. In doing so, he may have unintentionally weakened her case against some of the others involved. What's surprising is that the judge wondered why the other people named in the lawsuit, like Justin Beldoni, Heath, Nathan, and others, didn't make the same argument about jurisdiction, considering they all live in California. He pointed out that Blake hasn't shown anything specific that happened in New York which caused direct harm to her reputation in that state. Basically, he said that just because she felt wronged, it doesn't mean the lawsuit belongs in a New York court. The judge dismissed the case against Wallace without prejudice. That means Blake can still choose to refile the lawsuit in Texas if she wants to. Some people were confused by the legal terms, especially comparing this to how Justin's motion was dismissed with prejudice. But the difference lies in why the dismissals happened. In Wallace's case, it's about where the case should be filed. In Justin's situation, the judge believed the issue involved protected legal discussions, so it was shut down permanently. Blake has claimed that Wallace helped organize a digital attack against her, supposedly as revenge for her speaking out about workplace harassment. She says the negative feedback she received online around the release of her movie was part of this. But the judge reviewed all that and didn't see evidence connecting Wallace to any such plan. In fact, Wallace explained that he was simply asked to observe online chatter about Justin and share insights, not act or interfere. He said he didn't post anything, didn't tell anyone else to post anything, and didn't push any story to media outlets. Wallace also clarified that his company is based in Texas. He rarely travels to New York, and everything he did for Nathan and Beldoni happened from Texas. Because of that, the court says he can't be dragged into a New York case. If Blake wants to go after him legally, she'll need to file in the right state or change her complaint to include real evidence he was involved in New York activity, which so far, Scree hasn't done. The judge also mentioned that even if everything Blake said were true, it still wouldn't give the New York court the right to oversee Wallace's role. That's how clearly the law defines these boundaries. So for now, Jed Wallace is out of the case. And Blake has a choice. Either try again in Texas or move on. Here's a rewritten and simplified 500-word version of your text. With clear language, no repetition, and easy-to-understand explanations. In this part of the ruling, the judge explains why the lawsuit against Jed Wallace cannot continue in New York. The court found that Lively did not show that Wallace caused her harm in New York or did business there. She also didn't give any details showing that Wallace made money or ran operations in the state. Her claim was based on a theory that Wallace was part of a conspiracy involving others who acted in New York. However, the judge said this argument doesn't hold up in court when reviewing her complaint. The judge questioned why it was filed in New York to begin with. It seems the reason was tied to evidence Lively got through a subpoena in New York evidence she may not have been able to get in California due to stricter privacy laws. Okay. In California, if someone wants to get your records, the law requires they notify you first. But in New York, that's not always the case. Lively used what the judge called a sham lawsuit involving a fake company to get someone's phone records without them knowing. If she had tried this in California, she would have had to alert the person first, giving them a chance to block it. The judge also found Wallace's legal arguments convincing. He pointed out that for someone outside of New York to be sued there, under a conspiracy theory, they must have had some level of control over someone acting in the state. But Lively didn't show that Wallace had any such influence or awareness of what was going on in New York, even if others were involved in harmful actions. Wallace couldn't be held responsible unless he knew and benefited from those acts. Lively didn't provide that proof. She did mention that one person involved lived in New York for part of the time. But she didn't say what they actually did there that supported the alleged conspiracy. Just being in New York isn't enough. Likewise, she referred to a man who reportedly threatened to hurt her reputation during the film's premiere. But the judge said there's no sign that this was part of a larger plan, or that Wallace knew about it. Even if someone says something threatening, it has to be proven that the statement was meant to help carry out a conspiracy, not just venting or boasting. The judge also pointed out that her revised complaint didn't clearly explain how Wallace was connected to New York or what law supported her claim. Her arguments didn't deal with the New York long-arm statute, which allows out-of-state people to be sued in New York if they have strong ties to the state. The judge said Wallace had no such ties. The only real links to New York involved other people, not Wallace himself. So if Lively wants to sue him, she'll need to do it in a state where he actually lives or does business, like Texas throughout the court's opinion. The judge repeatedly explains that Lively didn't provide any proof that anything meaningful happened in New York involving Jed Wallace. There was no indication that Wallace had knowledge of actions taking place in New York, nor did he have communication with anyone located there. Lively's complaint didn't offer facts showing that Wallace was aware that any of the people he worked with, like Abel or Nathan, had any contact tied to New York. The complaint does mention that Wallace interacted with Abel, Nathan, and Tag, and that they collaborated to protect Baldwin's image while damaging Lively's. But that general claim wasn't enough. The judge pointed out that her remaining claims, like false light and helping others harass or retaliate against her, needed stronger evidence to establish that Wallace should be sued in New York. The court even noted that whether or not Abel and Nathan's actions might be enough to bring them into the case under New York law wasn't clearly argued by either side. To the judge, this likely raised concerns about whether many of the people involved in this case even belonged in a New York court. If motions had been filed to dismiss the case on those grounds, a judge would have had the opportunity to examine whether real connections to New York existed, whether any harm actually happened there, and whether it was targeted at Lively from within the state. Most importantly, the judge noted that there was nothing in the complaint showing Wallace had any idea that Nathan or Abel had connections to Sarah, Nathan, or were engaging in actions directed at New York. Even if a legal theory based on conspiracy could allow one person's actions to count for another, it wouldn't apply here because Wallace didn't even know about those actions. The court stressed that in order to bring someone into court under a conspiracy theory, that person must know the conspiracy exists, take part in it, and know that others in the conspiracy were doing things in the state involved. Wallace, the court emphasized, knew none of that. Because of these gaps, the judge said that Lively failed to meet the basic legal standard for showing that the court had power over Wallace. A person can't be expected to defend themselves in a court for actions they didn't know were happening. The judge also denied Lively's request for jurisdictional discovery, stating she hadn't made enough of an initial case to justify digging further. If Wallace really had known about New York-based actions, that information should come up in the regular discovery process, at a separate one just to figure out jurisdiction. The judge allowed her to update her complaint only if future discovery reveals solid proof that Wallace was involved in actions connected to New York. Until then, Wallace is out of the case. And realistically, unless she finds new and strong evidence that he knew and participated in anything tied to New York, it's unlikely he'll be added back in. Her entire conspiracy claim rests heavily on his involvement. Without him, that theory loses much of its strength. Right now, Blake Lively is facing a tough spot in court. One of the key people she seemed to blame for organizing a negative campaign can't even be added to her lawsuit. That person, according to the court, is outside its legal reach. The judge also stated that none of his actions happened in New York, which makes it nearly impossible to keep him in this case. Without him included, it becomes extremely difficult for her to prove that a group of online supporters did anything wrong on his behalf. This recent motion to dismiss has highlighted the weak areas in her lawsuit. It clearly shows that the case isn't as strong as she may have believed. So, I'm honestly not shocked by how this turned out. There's still a chance she might try to rewrite her legal complaint and submit it again. But even if she does, she faced yet another dismissal challenge from the other side. In my opinion, this is a clear victory for Jed. Now Blake Lively must decide what to do next. She can either stop trying to get this case dismissed in Texas and continue the legal fight there, or she may choose to completely drop her case against Jed. To be honest, her claims against him aren't strong to begin with. They seem just as weak as her attempt to subpoena content creators like myself. Many people have been frustrated that Judge Lyman keeps allowing her to win certain parts of this battle. But this development proves that even he sees that not everything she claims has legal merit. It's at least a small sign that the court is noticing the lack of solid evidence behind some of her arguments. Interestingly, the judge didn't even use the most direct legal reason to dismiss the case, one that would say her lawsuit failed to provide enough proof. But had he used that option, I believe even more of her arguments would have fallen apart in court. Now, I'd love to hear what you think. Are you happy with this update or disappointed? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. Also, remember to give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And for those of you worried about your data or bank accounts being exposed, don't worry. So far, the legal documents I've received only ask for my information. They're targeting my account and not the subscribers. If you're concerned about your privacy, you can simply set your YouTube subscriptions to private. This way, YouTube won't make your subscription list visible to others. Thanks again for watching. If you want to support the channel, leave a super thanks, comment, or share this video. It helps us reach more people through the algorithm. Bye, besties.